Hi all. I'd like to do a few videos on how to be a private security guard. They go by a couple of different names. You could be security guard, private police, security officer, night watchman. It's all basically the same thing. While I researched this video, one fella made the distinction between security guard, security officer. So I'm just going to go by my experience. I was a guard for 8 years. So this will just be for beginners. Miscellaneous tips in case you're thinking about getting into the business. That's kind of what I'm after here. So let me follow my notes. It seems like most of my videos now, I put them in a text file. And I started out thinking, 15-minute video just to give you an idea of what I'm thinking. And then, I start outlining these things. And it gets bigger and bigger. And I start saying, well, I got to say something about this. I got to say something about that. I should bring this up and so on, And it keeps getting bigger and bigger. So this one's going to take a while. I'll try to skim through it as quickly as possible, but I also want to be thorough. So where I can, I'll just skim through things. Some of this stuff is just links to videos I thought were good, that I thought you might want to be aware of. So you can see here I got 54 items. So it's pretty long. I don't think I'm going to be able to record this in one sitting. So my mind is willing, but your throat gives out after an hour or so. Okay, so this series is more of a how to be, and more importantly, how I recommend to be a private security guard. My goal here is to help improve the security business. I've got a quick about me here. This part here, to improve the security business, as I researched this topic past few months, it doesn't appear that the security business has changed much since the 1980s. Some of the training requirements might have changed, but basically the day-to-day job is still the same. Checking buildings, checking gates, watching out for people breaking into buildings, and fire watch and things like that. So a guard is a guard. Of course, each company that you work for is going to be different. So. Okay, so here's just a quick about me. I have a 2-year degree. They call it an AAS, Associate of Applied Science in Law Enforcement. And that was from Kent State in Ohio. And then I went on, I got a 4-year degree in criminal justice. That's called a BS, a Bachelor of Science in Criminal Justice. Right after I graduated, they changed that to justice studies because they wanted to get the word criminal out of there. And I was young. It was back in the 80s, late 70s. I didn't really know what was going on. I was just taking college classes, I was working full time, night shift as a guard at a factory, studying classical guitar full time, driving back and forth to Kent as a 200-mile trip, round trip, married, wife and kid. So my classical guitar teacher, he wanted me to practice 6 hours a day, plus going to school, plus working full time. So, I look back on that, I'll see how I did it. But now I see that it was more of a public administration program geared around law enforcement, but it was more of a public administration, the management of policing, which was pretty cool. Okay. Something that I remember the dean of the criminal justice department saying, he taught classes too, and he said in one class, if he was going to hire policemen, he wouldn't go to the college criminal justice department. He would go to the psychology department because they knew how to deal with people. Of course, you have to remember that was late 70s. People hadn't quite gone nuts yet. It was back around 83, 85, somewhere around there, that crack and AIDS came out. And that's when people just went nuts. Before that, before crack and AIDS, people wouldn't kill you for $1, usually, But after crack came out, it just got bad. So that's just a little FYI for you young guys, or for you young people. So I spent 8 years in security. It might be hard for some people to believe, but I really love it. My heart was in security. Sure, I applied for police jobs and things like that, but I always liked the idea of corporate security. Big difference between police work and security. Security is proactive. You stop a crime before it happens. Policing is mostly reactive. After a crime happens, they react to it. Of course, there's some prevention there, but they're really busy. They're swamped. I rode when I was taking classes at Kent. I rode with a big police department a couple of times, 8-hour shifts, and all they did, one house to the next house, taking reports. Last 15 minutes of the shift, they sat by a stop sign, wrote out a few tickets. And that was basically it. That they were just swamped. So I worked at many industrial places, factories, mainly a campus. I worked at a campus for a few years, worked my way up there in charge of security, over 40 guards, armed guards, and cars. And then I went into loss prevention for a major retailer where I caught shoplifters, employee theft. That wasn't the average loss prevention company. We were employed directly by the retailer, but they paid us the same as management. We were part of the management team in each store. And we had a lot of power as to what we could do, how we could tell the manager to fix things to make it more secure. So it wasn't the average minimum wage loss prevention job. So I worked at many factories. Some were nice, some were bad. I remember walking through an inch or two of white dust at one factory. Thank God I only worked there a couple of times to fill in. So factories, there's a lot of machines when you work at a factory. Huge machines. You know, when the place is shut down, you got to make sure these things don't burn up, catch on fire. Lots of chemical factories. Plenty of places I would hold my breath, put a rag over my mouth, and get through the building as fast as possible. Punch the detex key and get out of there. You know. Worked a couple of strikes. No strike is easy. One was kind of easy. We didn't have a lot of trouble, but there was some, you know. They flatten your tires and things like that. One strike, we got shot at. My buddy's car windows got shot out, you know. That first one was pretty bad. The campus is a small elite college, about 2,000 students. Okay, so there I supervised, you know, I started as a guard, worked my way up. I supervised 40 armed guards. We didn't have 40 guards right at the college, but the way my boss had it set up, my boss was the owner of the company. It was a private security guard company, had a contract with the college. And then the dispatch desk at the college, we ran the whole company from. He had factories all over the city. Some had cars, most were foot patrol. So that's why I say 40 guards. Of course, he was in charge in the daytime. Nighttime, he went home, and I was basically in charge, but he was always there. He was always on the radio. But there we had about 10 factories, give or take. You know, places always came and went. We had a dispatch desk and a handful of patrol cars. The loss prevention, that was they hire you in, ship you out to another state, pay all your travel expenses, pay to move you. Most guys were thought of as good if they get one shoplifter a week. I was put into a college town, and I would get 1 to 4 a day if I worked at it. You know, you get out there, walk the floor, sit in the security windows. You know, most of it was kids and housewives. Once a month or once a week, there might be a scary one. You know, tough guy stealing or a couple guys stealing tools. You know. Toward the end there, I worked about 100-mile radius. I think I worked maybe 5 stores, 10 stores maybe. And you drive out to a different store every day or every other day. Yeah. Okay, so back around 86 or so, that's when I got out of it. So I've been out of it 32 years. I already talked about this, you know, crack and AIDS came out. People got nuts. When I was working in the loss prevention thing, you know, it was a big company. They had a lot of stores all over the East Coast. I would hear about the other guards in the other big cities, and what was happening is people with AIDS would get caught shoplifting, and then they would bite the guards. And that's when I got out of it. It just wasn't worth it. Back then, they didn't know where AIDS was coming from yet. It had just come out. I think they had named it, but They just weren't. They just didn't know where it was coming from. That one college town just has a funny story. They had, it didn't have nothing to do with me, but the police had picked someone up for something, and the person had AIDS. They threw up in the back of the patrol car. And I remember that car sat outside the police station for a week or two with all the doors locked because they didn't know what to do. They didn't know how to clean it. Because I was arresting people every day. In that state, the way they did it was as soon as you caught them, you went right to court. 15 minutes later, you'd be standing in front of a judge. They didn't fool around there. So I walked by this car every day, just about, and they just didn't know how to clean it. And then I finally heard they brought it to the local car wash and told them to clean it. They're not even safe working at a car wash. Okay, so that's enough of that. So I got 3 parts here that I want to go over. I got a quick note to the FBI, quick note to business owners, and then a quick note to current security guards. Okay, so a quick note to the FBI. Like it or not, the security guard business has changed due to active shooters and terrorists. FBI and law enforcement cannot be everywhere. You need to help the security people help you. So how can you do that? New York City has an enhanced security guard training program. I found the PDF online. They require 40 hours, including 3 hours for terrorism. 3 hours. So 3 hours is not enough. Maybe 3 hours once a month. So the FBI needs to create mandatory standards for security guards. I suppose each state has their own requirements, but the FBI really needs to get involved here and create a national federal security guard training manual to be used nationwide. Probably take them half hour to do it. Just take their own training manual, cut and paste it for security guards and print it out. Change the title of the first page. FBI needs to create mandatory standards for security guards. National Federal Security Guard Training Course. Same as FBI training, maybe not as much. There's a lot of women, a lot of retired people in security. So this course can be given at local community colleges. When I took the security guard training, I went to a big college in Cleveland. And I don't remember, but I think we went a couple of times a week for a few hours. It was just like going to a college course. So maybe a 15-week course, 15-chapter book, 1 chapter per week. Just like a regular college course. 1 chapter per week. So a student has 7 days to read and study the 50-page chapter. Don't try to blow through this in 3 weeks. The fellows aren't going to read it, or the people aren't going to read it. That's what they do with truck driving. They created these standards, and then some schools blow through it in 3 days or 3 weeks. Who has time to absorb that amount of information? You might understand it as you go through it, but 2 weeks later you don't even remember reading it. So that's why a 15-week course, just like a regular college course. And of course, with man-to-man combat techniques. You know, when I went to Kent, they never showed us a pair of handcuffs, how to arrest someone, how to put handcuffs on, how to hold a gun, nothing like that. It was all bookwork. So here, do not cram this course into 2 or 3 weeks like the CDL truck driving course. So 50 pages per chapter times 15 chapters, 750 pages. That should be plenty. I mean, that's a big thick book. 50 pages per week is plenty. If they go to class once a week, then they got all week to read 50 pages. You know, that's what, 7 pages a day, 5 pages a day. So 1 test per chapter, 50 questions per chapter, true, false, multiple choice, a few fill in the blank, 1 or 2 essay questions. Now, of course, the questions couldn't be detailed to every factory or every business, but every building has boilers or furnaces or something that heats the place. Every building has electrical. Every building has computer systems. You know, every building has fire control systems, so they can be the same. You know, they can make general questions covering these topics. What do you do if you see a fire in an office? You know, seems like common sense, but for some people it might not be. The essays, see here, a few fill in the blank or 1 or 2 essay questions. Essays are important because a security guard must be able to write a coherent incident report. So that's very important. When I was a guard at the college and in retail, half the day was spent writing reports. You go to an incident, take care of it, go back to the office, write the report. Seems like at the college, that's all I did was write reports constantly. And you got to write a report about the incident so it holds up in court. You can't write 2 or 3 sentences because 6 months down the road, you go to court, you don't remember what happened. You got to write the details down the day it happened. It may not sound like that big of a deal, but in retail, you get a bad stop, it's $1 million lawsuit. That's why you really got to know how to write a good report. So here I put probably take the FBI a few hours, a few days to cut and paste one of these together. Some of the parts, that have to do with like maintenance, checking windows, checking doors, I don't know if that would be in their manual, but I think you see where I'm coming from. So I'll try to do a separate video on this topic. Okay, so that's enough of that. I think you see where I'm coming from there. Okay, so a quick note to business owners. The security business has changed due to active shooters and terrorists. Security guard pay must equal their responsibility. Right? Terrorist comes, active shooter comes, starts shooting the place up. Who are you going to call? You're going to call your guard. If you pay him or her minimum wage, don't expect too much if they hear gunshots. Some people may. If you hired a grandma or grandpa, don't expect them to really help all that much. And police are busy these days. It may take them a while to get there, especially if you live in a big city. Of course, if there's an active shooter, they'll be there right away. But I have some police training videos here. and it's by a police trainer out in LA. One of the things he says, most shootings go down in 3 seconds. 3 seconds. So it's not you hear bang, 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 wait for the police to get here, they'll be here in 15 minutes to handle it. Well, by the time police get there, it's over. No. Go online and look for a reenactment of Columbine. It's very realistic. I heard a company took all the recordings of what people had recorded while it was happening, and they did a reenactment, and it's very scary, because if you're in that type of situation, you're talking 2 young kids with shotguns. How do you deal with that? So you need trained security guards. So if your pay is low, your guard will probably look the other way in an active shooter incident. Some may not, but okay, so I recommend gatherings of about 50 people or more, give or take, right, should require a security guard. I've been at commencements for big colleges, somewhat big colleges. No guards, no policing. If somebody came in there and started shooting the place up, everybody's a sitting duck. You got a couple thousand people there. An example is I was a guard at a police wedding reception. That was back in the early 80s. And they hired my company to put a security guard at the door of the reception. They had rented a hall. They understood the risk. And that was before things got crazy. If your business has no security or hires grandpa, no offense to the older people, to act as a security guard, you could be the next major news story. And you need more than one. There was just a mass shooting on TV news a few weeks ago. The first one that got shot was a security guard at the door. It's almost impossible to defend against someone who just walks up and shoots you. But I heard on the news the shooter had on a long black coat, black hoodie, so he kind of stood right out. You have to look for that type of thing these days. Of course, retired police, deputies, FBI, military are great security guards. I've worked with a lot of them. They're great. But will retirees be willing to confront an active shooter? Probably not. They're retired. They made it through their career, as opposed to a younger security guard who's just getting in the business, who understands what the threats are. Of course, we don't want a security guard to confront an active shooter. You want the local police to do that, right? But sometimes if the security guard is the first one there and he has a gun, they don't have a choice. You got to do what you got to do. So this is your call here. Maybe use the retired policeman or deputy or FBI or retired military as the director of the department. They supervise the whole security team. Guard companies. Something you have to be aware of is how guard companies might cheat you. You as a company, you hire an outside guard company, right? They'll charge your business $30 an hour for a guard, right? You're presuming the guard is going to get $20 an hour. They turn around and pay the guards minimum wage. So they're making $20 an hour off you profit. Okay? Follow me there? So make sure you double check these things. I think it's best to just create your own in-house security guard department. You can create your own manual. This way it's specific to your business, what needs to be watched, where the doors are, where the fire alarms are. Train your people to your business. Hire a top-notch security director at the executive level. He sits in the meetings with the CEO, the vice president, the director of HR, and so on. And then set the minimum standards for hiring guards. If your guard job post, let's say you have your own security guards at your business, or you hire a company, and then that company hires guards at your business, contract security guards. If your guard job post has in it the words must have phone, car, and GED, you're hiring from the bottom of the barrel, and your security is a joke. Now, there's nothing wrong with helping people get started, but I think you can see where I'm coming from here, right? This gets back to how I started. The security business has changed with this active shooter and terrorist stuff. We're no longer just watching for garbage can fires and things like that. Pipes breaking. There's a lot more to it now. There was one out west, small business. I think the fellow was fired. He came back, chopped the woman's head off right in the office. I think the president or vice president was a deputy, part-time or something like that. Had a gun in the office, came out, shot the guy. So that's the type of security guard you need. Someone who can handle the incident. Okay, so at a minimum, all security guards should be in contact with the company dispatch center. So at your business, there should be a second person sitting behind a radio. Okay? FM radios, same as a police network. So here, I would say at least one dispatcher and 2 guards, on premises at all times. That's what the cost of one door at your business. Some doors, thousands of dollars, right? So it would be nice if the dispatch center had access to NCIC. That's like a national police network. The guards stop someone, question them, they can call in the person's name. If that's not possible, you could just quickly call the local police department. But by then the incident would be over. So this is something that should be looked at in the future. Okay, so here's a quick note to current security guards. Some security guard companies pay well, some do not. Of course, it's not all their fault. The businesses that hire them must pay more for a quality security service. The security business will not improve, meaning better pay, better benefits, until you start refusing jobs that pay poorly. In 2018, no less than $15 an hour with benefits. $20 an hour with benefits is better. It must be a good wage for raising a family. This benefits thing is very important because these days it's mandatory to have health insurance. So you're making $15 an hour. Let's get out the calculator here. So $15 an hour times 40 is $600, times 4 weeks is $2,400. You can figure minus $600 just for health insurance for one person. Minus $600 right off the top. If you got a whole family, I don't know what that would be, but we'll say minus another 400. So you can see it goes down real quick. That's just for one expense. So if it was $20 an hour times 40 is 800 times 4 weeks. So let's say minus 400 for taxes. That's $100 a week. And they probably take out more than that, right? Minus, let's say $1,200 a month for health insurance, down to $600, minus $250 a month for a car. So you got $1,350 left. A house payment or rent, say $500 a month rent, $850. So you can see where I'm coming from there. You start subtracting electric, gas bill, car insurance. That's why if it's not a good wage, your security is basically going to be a joke, and all you're going to be able to do is hire from the bottom of the barrel. So it's companies that scrape the bottom of the barrel that give us all in the security business a bad name. The security companies, the security contract companies, and the companies that use them. These security companies need to improve. You can spot these companies by their job posts. Just look for words like must have GED, car, and phone. Here's a website. You can see police patrol officer salaries. Now, of course, security guard salaries may not be as much as a policeman's salary, but it should be up there because it's getting back to what I said here. The security business has changed due to active shooters and terrorists. It's no longer just night watchmen checking doors and windows.